You know, double feature drive-in movies? Well, this is basically what we're about to go through here. The first showing being the Abxylute C6, and the second one being the Abxylute S9. Now that one is going to come out next. Hi, I'm Clef, and you're watching gametechtalk. As always, they have sent this product for review, but it has no impact on my opinions, and they get to see it at the same time as everybody else. Let's first open it, see what's in the box, and then go through the usual process. Very simple, extremely minimalistic box. A quick manual going over the different modes and the different features of this controller. Here we have the controller itself, with those little things to protect the sticks. And then here we have the dongle, a 2.4 gigahertz dongle, and a USB-C to USB-A cable. I don't think this is no mystery to anyone that may have researched this controller. It's definitely going for a budget style approach. So we're talking Gamester Nova Lite, we're talking Easy SMX X05. So let's just think of this product as something that is entry level and to review it as such. Starting with the ergonomics, and this is probably going to be one of the better aspects. It feels very similar to what you have on the market in general, kind of Xbox style. Feels good. If you like something that is light, you're definitely going to be served here. This is definitely not a heavy controller. Very ergonomically sound. You do have a little bit of a texture in the back, slightly dotted. There's no back paddles or anything like that, so you can really just sit your fingers wherever you want. When it comes to the triggers and everything else, everything is in reach. And when looking at the buttons, so here we have membrane for the D-pad as well, with a bit of a noisy center pit, membrane shoulder buttons, which also have this little bit of texture. Same goes for the triggers. Yeah, it's basically the same dotted kind of style that they had here. Very fine. So really everything, including the function buttons, are membrane. We do have Hall effect sticks, but we'll get back to that in a second. Overall, I mean, we'll see how it feels in play. It doesn't feel bad. I'm not saying this to take a jab at the controller, but you know, it feels cheap. You have a range of quality in all those different types of inputs. And when it comes to these ones, I'd say the membrane is kind of stiff, has a very traditional feel. So if you were gaming on controllers that were relevant 20 something plus years ago, it kind of feels like that. For the most part, not unpleasant, but not special either. Let's first find out if it can power the Switch. Now, I did synchronize it with the device. It powers just fine. While the game is loading, you do have a capture button right here. The other one at the bottom is actually for turbo. That's one of the features that this controller has that is beyond what a regular controller would have. Now, the layout, although it is a PC layout, when you're using it on Switch as I am, it's gonna be as if it was a Switch layout. So your A and B would be swapped in terms of values, and your X and Y would be swapped in terms of values. But what you actually see on the controller is the PC standout / Xbox layout. We're off to a very not good start. The diagonals were not registering all that well. However, it seems the Dragon Punch, yeah, so it glides very nicely. And as you can see, the Dragon Punch are very, very good. So I think it's one of those that in terms of fighting, but see, I'm having a hard time again hitting the diagonals. In terms of input commands, it seems to be very, very, very good. In fact, I just reviewed another controller that was surprising, and I'm doing just as good here. So would it be the controller to play Contra, to play platformers in general? I don't think so. But in terms of fighting games, it's pretty good actually. I haven't seen a whole lot of membrane lately that is this responsive when it comes to playing a fighting game. So here it's hitting left, but it's not hitting right. What is going on? It's not all that great when it comes to hitting other adjacent arrows. Surprisingly good for Street Fighter, maybe not so much for platformers. So if you're a retro kind of gamer, I don't know that I would recommend that D-pad all that much, if being honest. So we're gonna move to the sticks, but before we do that, I just want to test the gyro. There's rumble, by the way, which is actually decent. It's a rotary motor rumble. So no HD here, but what is there is good. Tad noisy, but overall good. Considering the price point, it's actually quite decent. find there's a little bit of issue with responsiveness at times, as you can see, but and again, if I was doing like wider motions, yeah, it's so maybe there's almost like a dead zone for the gyro to prevent misread. Now, by the way, to change the modes, it's in the everything is in the manual. You have a couple of things. If you want to do the Nintendo mode, you hold the what is basically the home button, but because we want to go X input mode on this one, we're gonna hold X and then push home, and it should blink, and when it does, that means it's ready to be paired. So we're gonna go ahead and do that on our Legion Go. Let's do the dongle instead. I'm just gonna get an adapter. The controller now connected. We have a perfect circle, and the stick resolution is actually quite decent. Maybe that's where the true value of this controller lies, and the quality of its sticks, because this is lower than average stick resolution. A very, very small dead zone. No snapping whatsoever to the cardinals. This is a very good quality stick. Honestly, not bad. The stick curve, it starts very nicely, very smooth, but I'd say about at 30% of inside of my radius, it really ramps up a lot. Just a smidge too aggressive for my personal preference, but as far as the resolution, as far as the clarity goes, it's actually decent. And when it comes to the triggers, they have a little bit of damping effect at the end of it. You're not gonna hear those click, click, click by the end of it. Sometimes it feels like there's a bit of a smooshy effect, I guess would be the word. It's not the case here. Very nice overall. It doesn't really react at the start of it. Takes a little bit of distance for the value to kick in. And there's quite a big jump in the middle, like I barely move it. It might be a little difficult on racing games, especially in the mid portion of the stick. I don't necessarily mind that there's a dead zone at the beginning, especially when thinking of braking and accelerating. You might actually find value in that. All right, really when it comes to features, very simple. It's Nintendo Switch, PC, iOS, Android, and Steam. So it pretty much works across the board, but when it comes to what it spoofs either as a Nintendo Switch controller or as an Xbox controller. That's really what you have to work with. When being wired, it only does the X input mode, and when using the dongle as well. You have turbo. Turbo is very easy to use. All you have to do is hold turbo and the button that you want to put turbo on, and once you hold that button, you'll notice that the light flashes. That means that turbo is activated on. You can address the responsiveness of your turbo by holding the turbo sign and clicking your right analog up or down, and you'll notice that it affects the flashing speed of the light and also the input itself. Whenever you hold the turbo button and you hold your left stick, you can also address the strength of the vibration. So let's talk performance. When it comes to using it wired, you can hit up to 200 Hertz polling rate. When looking at the other modes, I'd say that it falls flat quite rapidly. If you're using Bluetooth, you can expect to be around 65 Hertz polling rate. Extremely entry-level Bluetooth performance. You have a lot better nowadays. You have worse, but you know, when talking about worse, we're talking about controllers that existed 5-6 years ago. Nowadays, most controllers, even at the absolute entry level, will hit about 65 to 70 Hertz at the bottom of the barrel. When it comes to dongle, you're pretty much at the 125 Hertz with 100% stability, which is what we're using right now. If you're gonna take the full advantage of those sticks, you don't want to use Bluetooth. Now, when it comes to price, this controller, I've seen it listed at $35 to $40, and I think every now and then you have an extra coupon. It pretty much just released on Amazon, and I've seen Abxylute actually give a controller away with when you buy one of their Abxylute one handheld that I reviewed on the channel. I no longer have it, otherwise it would be here. I gave it to another creator for them to review. But when it comes to the Abxylute controller, and if I would recommend it, I would not recommend it. If you are to buy something else and it comes packaged with it, friends of the kids coming over and they need an extra controller, sure, use this one. You know what I mean? Like, they're playing Mario Kart on the television, they need a controller, Yeah, I'll give them that one. I'll keep my fancy controllers for myself. At the same price point that they're targeting, you have the Nova Lite as an option, you have the Easy SMX-T39 as an option. It doesn't make sense really to buy that one over one of the two models that I just mentioned. However, there is something that I do believe this controller to potentially do better, if not at least just as good, and it really is the sticks and the ergonomics. These are the two shining aspects of this controller, the sticks and the ergonomics. For everything else, it's either very meh to subpar. It's that part of the video where I'm going further than I need to go, but to me, this controller feels like something that was adjacent to another deal. This is technically the second release product of Abxylute. Am I glad that they released this controller? Absolutely, but I'll explain why. We think of these small companies as if they're designing everything from scratch, but the reality is for probably 90 to 95% of these companies, it is not the case. They have partners, be it through the design or through the manufacturing of their devices. There is some kind of partnership happening for most of these companies. Let me make this very clear. This is not a bad thing at all. But when you're entering into a collaboration with a partner, it's possible that they're going to offer you something in exchange of something else. So to give you an example, let's say Abxylute S9 is trying to produce their new controller that they have designed themselves. They need to find a factory partner, and the partner says, well, here's the price I can give you per unit. However, I have these controllers. If you buy the lot, I'll reduce the price and I'll maintain the price even after you're done with that lot. It's these kinds of deals happen in that kind of business and that kind of market. And sure, we don't need to go this far. We don't need to talk about these kinds of things. But all that to say that to me, this is what this controller feels like. It feels like something that they're like, okay, we'll have another SKU. We're pushing our brand a little further, but this is not our focus. And I think it shows, because right now, if you go on their Discord, there is a channel for the S9. There is no channel for the Abxylute C6. Again, I'm going further than I need to go, and I'm not trying to say that this is a bad product. This is actually a decent product. I don't believe you should buy this and think, oh, this represents this brand. Let me not look into their other products, because I've touched the Abxylute one and I've touched the Abxylute S9. And as far as I'm concerned, it is a far cry in terms of quality versus this. And this is why I'm saying all this, is if you buy this thinking, oh, let me see what Abxylute is all about, and then maybe I'll try their other products, don't use this as a reference, is what I'm saying. And to tie it all up and end this review, I've mentioned the drive-in movies at the beginning of this video. So if this is a double feature, and it very much is, because the next video you'll see coming from me is going to be the Abxylute S9. This is the movie that you may not have want to watch to get to the one that you actually care for. That's what it is. It's not a bad product, but it's a product that will be easily forgotten once they depleted the stock. That's what I firmly believe. But last but not least, the reason why I'm happy to see this product out on the market is, as little effort, as easy as maybe it has been to put on market, it's still an effort. And this is why I'm happy to review this product. And I'm happy to see Abxylute put a product out on the market, because that tells me that this is a company that wants to keep to grow. And for me, it's important. If I buy a product from a company, if I invest in a company, and I'm not saying out of my pocket, but I'm saying like in their lines of product, I like to know that this is a company that will keep growing. Might not be important for most people, but I'll be honest, it is for me, whether I'm reviewing a product or I'm just being a consumer completely detached of YouTube and reviewing things. That's just the way that I like to buy into a product, a brand. And knowing that they will further expand their product line to keep bringing new things that I could potentially be interested in comparison to a product like the Backbone or the Analog Pocket or was it the Starlight mouse? I can't remember the name. I hate the fact that I'm seeing the same products repeated for 2-3 years with just a color refresh and creating like this synthetic depletion and having people go crazy and pull their hair for something that is just a recoloring, or it's metal instead of plastic. To me, that is That is not effort. To me, that is milking your consumer base. And for Abxylute to bring a new SKU rather than bringing another Abxylute one that is a special model, a special edition, special coloring, it tells me that, okay, this brand wants to grow. This brand wants to find consumers and bring products to a market that I love. And this is an example of them doing that. Is it the best way that they could enter a second time in the market? No. But I'm happy to tell you that the third time, the Abxylute S9, yeah, that one you're gonna have to wait for the review. But anyways, until then, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.